How do you experience beauty in the midst of suffering? How do you get back up again only to find yourself suffering again? What does life look like for you? Well, today you will receive the answers to those questions. Welcome to CWS Christian Writing and Speaking. I'm your host, Jackie Wilson. And today's guest is the author of Beauty Beyond Thorns, Discovering Gifts and Suffering, as well as the companion study guide. Hailing from Denver, Colorado, she is a wife, mother of two, and grandmother of a precious baby girl. Let's welcome to the CWS stage, Miss Darci Steiner. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Wow, what a nice introduction. Thank you, Jackie.
You are so welcome. Of course, I'm always excited to have guests to hear their story and to get into this. But before we get into your story, what made you decide to start sharing your story now?
You know, I was asked to share my story many years ago when I had a first disability, and my kids were little then, and I felt like I didn't want to expose them to some of the stories back then. And then I always felt like it would have benefited some people had I. So, there's kind of that balance, do I or do I not? But because God gave me a second opportunity, if you will, you can look at it as an opportunity. I decided this time I can't keep what he's showing me to myself. I've got to share what he is showing me because I was dumbfounded at the things that he was teaching me. So he allowed me this opportunity.
Yeah, and you went through two traumatic events. Won't you share with
Mhm.
the audience what those events were?
You bet. So, gosh, in the year 1999, I fell down the stairs of our home, and our girls were 5 and 2.5 at the time. And, as I laid at the bottom of the stairs, my daughter asked me, "Mommy, are you okay?" And I, I wasn't, but you don't tell your kids that, right? You just go on. And so eventually I became bedridden, and I was bedridden for a couple of years due to this back injury. And I didn't know it then, but what had happened was I developed a nerve pain disorder called complex regional pain syndrome. It used to be called RSD, or reflex sympathetic dystrophy, but now it's CRPS. And I didn't know about it, and doctors didn't diagnose me with it. So I didn't know why I had this excruciating pain that kept me bedridden. And the pain was actually more in my feet. So I was unable to walk. And we had a commode by the bedside. I honestly felt so bad that I thought I was dying. And my counselor said, "You were definitely dying," because I was not eating because the pain. And some people will understand this when you are in such horrendous pain, you can't eat. You can't do anything, and you're not hungry, and everything tastes bad. And so I was losing a lot of weight and became malnourished, and almost lost my life because of it. But God had a different plan for me. And my counselor was like, "Doctors aren't helping you. You've got to figure something out. What is it that you know that you should be doing that you're not doing?" And I said, "Well, that answer is pretty obvious. It's I need to eat, right? I mean, that's the best thing that I could do for myself." So I had to find something that I could eat. In trying to figure that out, it was drinking. It was drinking my calories. So I started drinking this protein shake that my husband began making me, and I was able to keep that down. And I was really determined because she was, I guess it didn't occur to me that that's what I really needed to do. So that question really, I think, was from God. I think he directed my counselor to ask me that. And sometimes the answer is right in front of our faces, but we don't see it, you know?
Because we're so blinded by what it is that we're going through.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my mind was focused on the pain rather than the solution.
Mhm.
And the solution was, okay, yes, it hurts to eat, but it hurts to just lay here. So, you might as well eat, endure that, and see if you can keep something down. And lo and behold, I began gaining a little bit of weight and some hope, and was able to then make it in the wheelchair to the therapy pool, which was a lifeline for me. And it's where I learned to walk again. And I started walking in the water. Now this is like very fast forward, right? Because, yes, I was bedridden for 2 years, and then I was in a wheelchair for 2.5 more. But during that time, I was walking increasingly more. It was mostly in the water, but I was able to take a few steps on land and get to the restroom, which I was immensely grateful for. Those few steps are just so helpful. So, I was able to improve and got better, was completely better after 6 years because I studied nutrition and I began practicing the things that I was learning in my books. I signed up for a master's program that I did at home, and I took my time with it, but I was my case study. And a 4-year program turned into 6, but that was okay. The school let me have those 6 years. And I opened a private practice, nutrition counseling after that, and had no pain, Jackie. It was a miracle
Yeah,
from God,
absolutely.
a complete
So
miracle.
life is going great. You have your practice, then something else happens to you.
Yeah. So for 9 years, I had a reprieve. And when my daughter got married, we were at the facility and everything was great. And during cleanup, a chair slid down the wall and hit my ankle where the CRPS had settled in
Mm,
my foot before, in my ankle. And immediately I knew. I was like, this pain is too intense to just be a chair hitting my ankle.
mhm,
So I knew from the start the CRPS had returned. And indeed, it had, and I still have it. It's been 5.5 years, and I have not yet experienced a full recovery, but I am beginning to walk again. I have been for a while. I don't walk a lot. I'm able to walk to the bathroom. I'm able to get my lunch and walk around the house. Additionally, I'm able to walk into the therapy pool now, which is a new thing. And a couple weeks ago, the class before me, they saw me walking in and I got an ovation. And they happened to be standing in the pool. So I call it a standing ovation, but they saw me walking. And so I am making improvements. It's just much slower this time.
mhm.
And I don't know if God has a full recovery for me this time, but I didn't think that he'd give me this much of a recovery. I didn't know if I'd walk at all. So I'm grateful for the amount that I can.
And this time you did something different. You actually wrote a book.
I did.
Mention the title again.
Okay. It's Beauty Beyond the Thorns, Discovering Gifts in Suffering. And that's exactly what I felt like I was doing, was I was discovering these amazing gifts that God gave me within disability that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. So, for instance, when you are not able to walk and then you're able to take a few steps to the bathroom, imagine the gratitude that you feel. Now, most people probably don't feel grateful for the ability to go walk to the bathroom. That's just something that's taken for granted, right? So, a gift that I discovered was the profound gift of gratitude that, yes, I'm thanking God for every step I can take to go walk to the bathroom or to walk, to go get my lunch or whatever. So the gift of gratitude, the gift of compassion, you understand people better and you're more understanding of what they go through because of what you've gone through, you know? So there's I defined 30 gifts that God showed me in suffering. And I outlined them. They're short chapters, and then I wrote a study guide because I felt like this is a good book to do with a group of people. who have been going through suffering or in a recovery group or a Bible study. And I did it with my church, a group of women at my church. And it was like, I got this front row seat, Jackie, to watching how God was using my book that we wrote together, that He put on my heart, and watched these women heal from things that they were hurting from, and all kinds of things, widows, people who were hurting, etc. Just different kinds of suffering, not just physical.
Do you feel like you would have experienced the same level of joy if you had refused to write the book?
No, because just sitting down and writing and thinking about this, it was like, well, there's this other gift too, you know? And then it was like, there's another one, and there's another one. And so it made me realize the gifts God had given me in suffering because I sat down to write about it. I don't know if I would have thought about it as deeply if I hadn't put my mind at work to writing.
Yeah, it seems like when we answer our call, even in the midst of suffering, God is not only changing us, but He's, helping us change other people's lives.
Yes, yes, and I have women around the world that call me and write me and ask me, how do you get through suffering? How do you stay positive? How do you not get bitter? And trust me, I have been in those places of not trusting, and I have been bitter, and but I've worked through it. And most of the time I'm okay, you know, but I feel like God has used the book and He's used the study guide to help people, and I'm so grateful because it wouldn't be here without Him. All glory goes to Him because He's the one that, every time I sat down to write, I would pray, God, write the words for the people who are gonna to read this and work through the guide. Just give it to them. And so I can't take any credit for anything that He's done with a book, but I have another one that I'm just finishing writing. It's actually a 2-volume book about the Psalms, and I'm just working right now and getting endorsements for it. But the writing for it is complete, and it's about the backstory of the Psalms and what actually was happening when some of these Psalms were written. Why David cried out, "Why, how long, Lord, how long?" Well, what was going on when he wrote those words? And so that's my up and coming book.
Yeah, I love it. So we know that you're writing or have finished writing this new book and it hopefully be out soon. What else is next for you?
Well, I am doing more speaking engagements, which I also thoroughly enjoy. I would love to come to visit churches and recovery groups, any opportunity, even online opportunities to speak, because I think that people don't have a lot of joy in their suffering.
Mm.
They seem counterintuitive to each other, but suffering, God does something in suffering. I mean, He wouldn't have allowed Jesus to go through suffering, but suffering changed Jesus. It changed Paul. It changed Joseph. It changed Hagar. There's good that comes after suffering. And so we have to hold on to hope and trust that God is working behind the scenes. And so I like to share that message, and it's a message of hope and inspiration. And I think a lot of people, not even people who feel like they're going through deep suffering, can be encouraged by the message that I have to share.
And if someone listening right now says, it's been such a long time, my hope is fading, what would you tell them?
Keep holding on. You keep reading your Bible, you keep praying, and you engage in the relationship with God. It's not just about filling your mind with scriptures and memorizing scriptures, which is great. It's embracing God, it's turning around and facing Him and being open, having an open stance, a willingness. God, whatever it is that you want to show me, I'm here. I just need you to help me. and having that attitude of willingness, a willing spirit toward Him, but also a trust in Him that you've got to enable me to do whatever it is that you're calling me to do, but I'm willing.
Love it. How can people connect with you?
So I am on pretty much all social media channels at Darci J. Steiner. Let's see. Instagram is a little different. It's darcijsteiner.writer, but I'm on social media. You can follow me on Amazon, and that way you'll know when my next book is coming out. My books can be found on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. I'm not in brick and mortar except for a couple of places in Denver. So, but yeah, that's how you can find me. My website is Darci J. Steiner. So that's pretty easy, darcijsteiner.com.
Love it. And what is your final word to the audience?
Gosh, you know that there are beautiful things to come, whether you're suffering or not. You know, God turns things upside down. We live in an upside down world where if you're a Christian and you believe that God is a good God, He is doing something beautiful that is unseen in this world, but not in the spiritual realm. And you've got to remember, in the spiritual realm, things are upside down. You know, the Beatitudes are upside down. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit. How does that make sense? It's upside down, right? But those are words from Jesus that we need to hold on to, that even when things seem upside down, they're not. God sees things right side up.
CWS audience, you have heard her today. Right now, if you're suffering, just know there is purpose to your suffering. God may be calling you to do something in the midst of your suffering. And if He is, that is where you will find your joy. So step up, let God use you right now. Sometimes you will experience bitterness. It's okay, it's emotions. That happens. But I love what Darci said, be open to God. Tell Him that you need His help. And it's okay for you to maybe feel angry and other emotions that you may not want to discuss with other people, but talk to God and be open to what it is that He wants to say to you. There is a greater benefit to what you're going through. And as the Bible tells us, eventually we are comforted so that we can comfort others. Thank you for listening to today's episode. And until next time, beautiful people, God bless.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Thanks again, and see you next time.